Hello? Hi everyone. Okay, so I thought about doing this as a stream, but I thought might as well record a video for it. I've had a few people ask me how to use aviUtl, so and I will also mention there are lots of tutorials online on YouTube, so I guess I'll just make another one. Okay, so when you first open up the program, there'll be lots of different windows. The only two that you really need is this is the main one, which is the preview, and the timeline. And if you accidentally close the timeline, you can go to File, Settings, shortcut key, go down until Filter plus Advanced Editing. Let's see. I'm also following a tutorial for this one. Filter plus Advanced Editing. Advanced Editing. Okay. Assign Control plus W to this filter. Control plus W. Press OK. So now if you close this and press Control W, it'll open it up. Now, to start out, you want to right-click the timeline and create new project. I usually go for the dimensions of 1920 at 1080 at 24 frames per second, and I don't know anything about audio, so that I leave that at default. And you can make frames per second lower or higher depending on how powerful your computer is. I'll mention a couple of times throughout this video that there are certain things that this program provides that will be heavy on your processor. Like it'll just take a lot of power to use, and there are things that are much easier. So first, we've got our timeline and we got our stage here. Let's import an image. So we right click, we go to New Media Object, we go to Image File, and let's pick something. This is all stuff for a certain campaign I'm doing. Let's take one of these. So now we have this on the stage, and we have this new window. And on the left side of this, there are two sides to this, a bunch of numbers on both sides. On the left side is the starting point, on the right side is the ending point. And we have these buttons in the middle, X, Y, Z, zoom percent, clearness and rotation. X, Y, and Z are the position of the image. So if we click the button, we have a bunch of options here. The default one is rectilinear movement, and it'll have, we have this one here. This is the starting point. Let's make that -100. And you can use these sliders as well to move it, and you can also move them directly on the stage. But I like typing them in, so let's do -200 to 200. So now we can see that the starting point is at -200 and the stopping point is at 200. So if I press space, which is play, we can see that the image file moves from point A to point B. And I normally don't use anything aside from rectilinear movement, and you can test out these other movements that they have provided. There are these two check marks down here for acceleration and deceleration, which will make the movement have a certain smoothness to a stop, because right now it is just moving from point A to point B. Those two at the bottom will make it like slow at the start for acceleration, and then fast at the end, and deceleration will be fast at the beginning and slow at the end. So let's see what acceleration does, and then we'll see what deceleration does, and then we'll see what both of them do. Anyway, so zoom is how big it is. It's pretty much the same as the z-axis. Z-axis is how close it is to the camera. and y-axis is up and down, x-axis is left to right. Zoom makes big, Z also makes big or small, I suppose. And clearness is, oh, whoops, clearness is the opacity of the image. So 0, it means it's not clear at all, and then 100% means that it's completely transparent. And rotation is with the angle of it, obviously. And these are all things that you can control as if they were point A, point B's from state 1 to state 2. So we can make it turn upside down, like this. There's also, you can do repetitive movement. And these settings are, I think, the speed or like the number of times it does that movement over again. So let's do 1. I think it's the speed. So let's do 100. Oh, it's because this is not moving. Let's go back to 1. Okay, so it's the speed, or the amount of like time passes. How much time passes until they do it again? So if we do it 100, it'll do it pretty slowly. If we do it at, let's say, 10, yeah, this repetitive movement makes it do it again and again. And this can be done for the clearness and like other aspects as well. So let's make it repetitive movement. 30 to 30, 30 to negative 30. Setting is at 20. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so let's get rid of all these movements we've done so far, because now we want to look at animation effects. So if you right click this window not on a button, oh, we can also talk about synthesis modes. But these are pretty, if you're familiar with like drawing programs, these are pretty much like layer filters applied to the image, into the layers below this image. Oh, which also reminds me, you probably want to realize that this timeline, layers that are closer to layer 1 are beneath the layers that are closer to the larger number. So if we change this file location, this reference file down here, let's make it this one. We can see that this rabbit is behind this rabbit. Anyway, let's look at animation effects. So we right click, we go to add filter effect, and there's tons of these. These are all very interesting and very helpful, but it's all stuff you have to, for the most part, experiment for yourself. And I haven't like done all of these yet. But animation effects is the thing that I use the most and is probably the most helpful. The default one is trembling, which is what I tend to use a lot for an effect that is not normally trembling. So we have these new properties that are added on. You can minimize these windows or like turn them off with these check marks. So we have amplitude right now, which is at 5, which is pretty small. So if we wanted it to shake, this is what it looks like already. And we can see that the amplitude it's not like shaking a lot, but the angle is making it shake a lot. So if we make the angle really small, you can see that it's shaking much smaller. And if we make the amplitude a lot bigger, let's say 50, we can see how crazy it goes. And this interval means that how much time passes until it makes another movement. So, how much time passes until it moves to its next spot. So right now the interval is 0, which means that it's shaking very, very fast. So if we make this interval like 50, we can have an effect that makes it look as if it's just, this rabbit is just floating around. And you can see here that these blue bars represent how long this image stays on the video. And also you can see that this little blue bar here on the upper left of the timeline, it is how small you want to see your timeline. Like right now I'm zoomed in at the most. You can see each individual frame. And also you can, these layers, these are all buttons in which you can make these layers invisible. If you have stuff going on that's like, that makes your computer run pretty slowly, this is a pretty helpful tool to make it so that you can look at how each individual piece moves without it lagging so much. And I'll mention again, certain things in this program take more power in your computer to use. Animation effects are one of them, and I think trembling isn't as bad, but certain things, especially like other filter effects, for instance, motion blur, that tends to make things pretty difficult to handle if your computer is not very powerful. So let's move it from here to here. See, it's kind of even lagging for me, this motion blur. And you can kind of see how it works, but it's not fast enough. So here we can see how the motion blur affects this rabbit. And there's some animation effects has like a motion blur, which makes it more difficult to handle. So this is a typical animation effect, the trembling one. The trembling one. You can see it moving. It has all these certain properties, and then there's the animation effects that only really affect the image when it appears or when it disappears. So let's do appear while scaling. See, at default it takes 0.3 seconds to zoom from 300% to whatever your normal zoom percent is. And this also has a property that you can't control, which is the transparency. It starts big, goes to your normal spot. And this is the appear while ... There are a few animation effects that are just the appear while ... And it'll only do it at the beginning. But you can also do make the time negative, and then it will disappear with that effect. Okay. There's lots of different effects here. They're basic effects, and let's use reversal. Reversal does flip horizontal, vertical, invert luminance, hue inversion, which can't apply here because this is black and white, and transparency inversion, which makes these parts like black, and this box here transparent. Oh wait, yeah, I can show that. Or not. Maybe not. Okay. And if you right click the timeline, you can also add a filter object. You can add a bunch of these different things. You know what, first let's do custom object. Custom objects are like animation effects that you can do, that you can choose from, and you don't like apply to other objects. And I say that they're like animation effects because like they have all these different properties that you can control. For instance, this one I can make the speed much slower. For this, oops, I don't want to make it a 0. I can make the speed much slower for how this focus line works, and you know how it looks. But what makes it also similar to animation effects is how it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of power to use. And also, by the way, you might have already noticed, but you can control all of these by making them certain movements. So maybe we want to start the speed slow, and then go fast, and it'll look something like that. But there are a lot of also very interesting different things. These are all things that I used if you've watched the Despot Despair argument armament videos. These are all like the different attacks. I think I use this one a lot. And they're all very nice. And you can also right click this area, add a filter effect. One thing I tend to do a lot is add a fade, which will make it fade in and out. fade in, fade out. These are all like the amount of time it takes to fade in and fade out. So if you make them 1, it'll take 1 second to fade in and 1 out. But it just gives like a kind of smooth transition. So it comes in and comes out. You can also do animation effects on top of filters or on top of custom objects. Sometimes they work. Yeah, this is the default trembling effect on top of the snow, so you can see how that's kind of jittering around as it falls. But anyway, we also have filter effects on their own, filter objects, I suppose, and this will apply to everything above on the timeline, and therefore like below it on the screen. So let's see if I can show you what I mean. I tend to use color shift for certain scenes. You can see how this affects everything above in the timeline, and by extension everything that's below this on the screen. Because if we were to imagine this like layered on top, this would be on top of everything. And just like the animation effects, just like the custom objects, you can alter these properties of it. So for instance, let's just make this a rectilinear movement, and we can make the angle something else. So we can see how this now is, oops. How this now is like shifting as we move forward. It's not just a static color shift. We can also change you can also change the version of color shift. So this is, the original was this looks like cyan and magenta. Ah, geez. Well, you get the idea. And we can change the difference. Oh, that looks nice. Look at that. And the strength. So how transparent it would be. There are a lot of like playing around with this program is just seeing what effects you like and what effects you would like to continue to use. And this does look nice. And another thing I use a lot is a graphic, which is a very simple shape. They give you a few presets: circle, square, triangle, pentagon, hexagon, background, you know, all these different stuff. And there isn't too much to say about these because they basically act as just image files, but you don't have to like have an image prepared for it. And yeah, I mean, clearness, rotation, size is the same thing as zoom and Z. You can do some transformation. Line width has no property here. But what I tend to use this a lot for is I use backgrounds. Whoops. Let's just get rid of this first. I tend to use backgrounds when I have like a lot of filters going on already. I don't want to add another fade filter. I put in a background graphic, and then I have it like a rectilinear movement for clearness, and then have it like that. So I would have it come in at the end like that. What else do I have to tell you guys? You could do scene transitions, scene change. But I don't have another scene prepared for you. Basically with this, the most basic thing is that you have all these buttons that you can change the properties to. And the ones on the left side are point A, the one on the right side is point B. The start and stop, the start and end of what's going on. And you can stack filters, you can stack all these things. What I tend to do a lot is stack animation effects to have it have certain appear kind of effects and disappear kind of effects. what else is there to say? I think that's pretty much it. Rotation movement. Rotation. So we can see with rotation that it's oh right, I mostly moved in this video. I mostly moved things by typing in numbers, but you can move things on your timeline just by clicking on it. And this green box that you may see around your image, or not around your image, because this has a certain effect to it right now. The green box is the starting point. The red box is the ending point. If you hold shift, it will move exactly 90 degrees horizontally or vertically your image. And if you hold shift, it'll move the entire like movements. You can see that both the green and red box are moving at the same time right now. And okay, so you can multiple select items in your timeline by holding shift and selecting them, and you can move them around like that. And you can group items together, holding shift, or not shift, holding control. It's holding control that makes you select multiple things. Holding control, you can right click, you can do grouping. I think grouping, so now they will move together always. I think grouping often doesn't allow you to use animation effects. Often. I don't know about all of them. Or whatever. So we can ungroup these. And we can also add a new media object. We can add group control. And now we can add, we can control anything that's below this. I've changed the number of target layers. It defaults to infinity. And you can add animation effects, or you can add filter effects to your groups, and it will apply to all of them. So now both of these items are trembling because they're both in the group control. And I think that's all I have to say. Oh right, you can right click the timeline, go down to range settings, make the last object position last frame, or make current object position last frame. That is to change the length of your video. I suppose that's all I am familiar with. Alright, that's it. When you export a file, export as AVI, it'll export as a huge file. You will need a video converter to turn it from AVI to MP4 or any other video type. I tend to use Handbrake because it's someone else recommended it to me. Another thing you can do is you can uninstall aviUtl. This sounds like a joke, but you might want to uninstall, reinstall, and unclick everything that has uncheck everything that has what was it? 264, I believe. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it. There is a way that you can export directly into an MP4 file. If you just give me a second. Oops. You uncheck everything that's 265 related items. And then you go into File, Export with Plugin. This is like before you install it, like while you're installing it, they give you the option for a custom install. You want to uncheck everything with 265 x265, and then you go into Export with Plugin, and you go to the last one, Export with 264, and you go to Video Encoding. And then you want to change this to to 8bpp.exe, I suppose. And then you can export directly as an MP4. And I think that will work out. Let's do this temp export. And it's done. And let's watch our silly little video. Let's see. Yep, there it is. And you notice that it doesn't have like the filter effect that I had applied because I made that layer invisible. Alright, that's the end of that video then.